All right, everybody, we just got the live stream up on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and share the link so we can get it posted online. You guys can keep rolling. Sorry that took so long.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. All right. Now, at this time, I would like to come out of recess. I'll do call for roll call. Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Brown.
Did we
I'm here. I thought we were going to another platform.
So we're going to stay on Zoom. It's just that we're going to be able to transmit the Zoom screen via YouTube.
Okay,
to the public.
gotcha. Thanks. Sorry I was late.
I'm sorry, Missy.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know if you were coming out of recess there, if you had a motion to come out of recess, or if she was just asking a question. I just didn't catch what happened before that. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So at this time now, I entertain a motion to continue to come out of recess.
I am so moved.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Marshall. Is there a second?
Seconded by Commissioner Lund.
Second by Commissioner Lund. All in favor of the motion, starting with Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Flick.
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley.
Yes.
Commissioner Steed.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart supports yes. Commissioner Weberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
All right. All right, Paul, are you ready to read the public comments for our first zoning docket?
I'm actually going to read them today, Commissioner Stewart.
Okay.
I think Paul's got his hands full with the other aspects of things.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, do you have the comments? Do you have the ability to display the comments on the screen?
Yes. Well, Paul Harang is the host now, so actually I wouldn't be able to.
Paul, go ahead and share your screen. You should be able to.
One moment while I open those, if that was emailed to me.
Yeah, I sent it 15 or 20 minutes ago.
And those who are joining us on YouTube, we're just coming out of recess. We're about to go over the first zoning document.
All right, you should be able to see them now.
Commissioner Stewart, should I go ahead and start reading the comment on the first item?
Yes.
So item number 2, which is zoning docket 6420. There was one comment in support of the application from Kirk Jacobs at 4314 Shell Road. His comment is that I believe this change will allow more people to enjoy the beauty of the Lake St. Catherine community. Also, it will help provide some needed camp space for fishing. It is my hope that this change is adopted. Thank you. There were no comments in opposition of the matter.
Thank you, Stephen. So, Commissioner, at this time, we've heard from the public. Is there any further discussion, questions for staff, or is there a motion pertaining to zoning docket 6420?
This is Commissioner Steig. I move approval in accordance with staff recommendation.
It's been moved by Commissioner Steig. Is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Flick seconds.
Commissioner Flick seconds the motion from Commissioner Steig for approval of zoning docket 6420. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Sorry, I was having trouble finding the mute button. Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve,
Yes.
Commissioner Stutz votes yes in support. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Unanimous support for zoning docket 6420. At this time, we'll go on to the next zoning docket, 6820, to hear the public comment. Stephen.
So zoning docket 6820 has one comment in support from the Very Reverend William Terry, representing the applicant St. Anna's Episcopal Church at 1313 Esplanade Avenue. His comment is that with decades of service to our community, St. Anna's is excited to restore this house and provide it in service to our community, especially the children. We have a unique opportunity to support and meet the needs of the Tremay 7th Ward neighborhoods through Dodwell House and the associated coffee shop. Currently, our out-of-school time programs engage 60 to 70 youth throughout the year, and our food pantry is serving 60 families. The additional space Dodwell House provides will allow us to expand to 100+ youth and expand by offering programs for their families and the community as a whole, as well as expand or reconfigure our food pantry. Our 11-year history of working with marginalized youth has provided us with insight into how to assist them to further their education, gain better jobs to support their families, and to succeed in the future. Being able to expand our programs to more families and offer on-site job skills training will benefit the entire city. Coffee shop concept is not meant to compete with local businesses, but to be an educational opportunity to empower youth who are or have been enrolled in Anna's Place to prosper and thrive. With limited hours of operation to accommodate youth schedules without putting youth at risk during late evening hours, youth will have more time to focus on academics and applying to colleges. Culture of the coffee shop will be that of mentoring, learning best personal practices in real-time work environments, encouraging student employees, and providing a resume that speaks to community engagement and learning more than simply an hour wage than they would get in a big box fast food environment. Further, such communal gathering places create safe spaces for our community to engage and create the village that we all know is possible in our neighborhood. We are open to restrictions that the commission recommends for the coffee shop to be approved. Thank you for your support. There were no comments in opposition, and as a reminder, the staff recommendation is modified approval, which would approve the community center component with 7 provisos and deny the coffee shop component of the application.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments or questions for staff as relates to this document from any commissioner or a motion?
I would like to make a motion to actually approve the full application. And part of the reasoning would be because from the NPP, there is no opposition, and also there is no opposition in the public comments. And I believe that there's a gas station to the left of the property, and there was an art gallery to the right of the property that I think is actually closed down. But then you have a commercial restaurant on the opposite corner that may have been in opposition that wasn't. And then the 2 coffee shops that are farther down on Esplanade, there's 2 within a block from each other. I just see this as a community benefit as well as a public benefit to go ahead and improve the coffee shop with the full application.
Brown seconds.
If I could interject quickly, this is Stephen. So there is a approval of the coffee shop would trigger an 8th proviso, which is included in the staff report. It's not part of the recommendation because the recommendation wasn't for approval, but it basically imposes the standard use requirements on neighborhood commercial establishments, which is the type of use the coffee shop would be. So just an FYI, among those is a hours of operation restriction that would restrict the coffee shop to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I believe in the public comments, there was a suggestion by the applicant that it could be limited further from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you may want to consider that proviso in some form.
Thank you. There's a motion for full approval by Commissioner Witry, second by Commissioner Brown. Is that correct, Commissioner Brown? You second?
Yeah, I did, and I will probably second her amended motion if there is one, depending on what she decides.
So from staff, we heard that it triggers another proviso. Are you including that proviso in your motion, Commissioner Witry?
Yes, and just to be clear, that would mean the coffee shop would run from 9 to 2 p.m. Is that correct? 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.?
Sure. So the proviso would, as written, the proviso would limit hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is kind of the boilerplate restriction. I heard from the applicant that they wanted to operate until 2 p.m. I heard 6 a.m., but my recollection may be incorrect there. So if you wanted to limit it to 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., that would be within the scope of the existing regulation, and you could do that.
Thank you, Stephen. So that would be from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Witry, can you restate your motion for the record, please?
Yes, and Stephen, I may need help here. I would like to go ahead and approve the full application and adding the proviso that the coffee shop operations would be from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah, and I'll just, if I could modify that just on the technicality, the way the proviso is written now is the coffee shop shall be operated in compliance with Article 20, Sections 20.3.n and subsections 3 through 11. And I would amend that to say also limiting hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
So move.
And seconded.
So it's been moved by Commissioner Witry to accept the full application for this docket matter with the addition of proviso 8, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Commissioner Mobley.
Go ahead, Sue.
I think that the proviso as written is expansive and gives time for the coffee shop to establish what hours work best around youth schedules. And as they may have to adapt that as it becomes open around school, and particularly as the shape of school has changed with the pandemic, I would hate to restrict them further than we need to as part of a zoning consideration.
What would be your recommendation?
That we retain the proviso from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and allow them to select hours that best meet their youth's needs.
Yeah, I'm in complete support of that. And that's actually, Commissioner Mobley, what I was going to say. I agree with everything Commissioner Witry said. This is not only next to the gas station, Little Dizzy's across the street. I think this is actually an ideal spot for this kind of enterprise. I would hate to strip out some of the ability to have some flexibility, and I don't think it hinders anything to give them the full run that goes with the zoning, and then let the business make the decision if that's 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or 6 o'clock. So I agree, we should give them 6 to 10.
Any more comments or concerns about the motion?
So Commissioner Witry, would you, if you don't want to amend, I would be happy to support Commissioner Mobley's second motion. So it's just a matter of how we want to take this.
Well, we haven't voted on the first one. So either we get an
Thank you.
amended motion or we vote on that one. I'm happy to support the amended motion if that's the way this is going.
I am happy to. I will defer to my fellow commissioners who are also educators on this. And Stephen, I would like to amend, or Commissioner, I'll amend my motion to the operating hours to not limit it to my previous motion from 6 to 2. And would that be then from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or to the best hours suited?
Yeah, I mean, that would be from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So I think the motion would be to just add that 8th proviso as it's written in the staff report with no modifications.
So moved, Stephen. Thank you.
And I'll second that one as well, even though it is beyond what the applicant asked for. I think that giving them flexibility in anticipation of challenges they may not have contemplated at the time. So I'll support that.
All right, so I'll restate the motion. So we have a motion by Commissioner Witry for full approval of the application as is with the 8 proviso that allows operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that's been seconded by Commissioner Brown. Is there any further discussion on that motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart votes yes. Support.
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Unanimous support for the docket matter on the motion by Commissioner Witry. At this time now, we'll move to zoning docket 60.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out the YouTube link on the screen right now and perhaps read that out. I'm not sure how small that appears for everyone who might be viewing.
Absolutely.
We have that as https://www.youtube.com/watch ? V as in Victor equals sign, capital E, lowercase k, capital B, lowercase j, number 3, lowercase I, capital F, capital V, lowercase r, lowercase j, and the number 8.
All right. Thank you so much. Zoning docket 6920, Stephen.
Zoning docket 6920 is a request for a zoning change at 13350 Interstate 10 Service Road. As a reminder, the commission will not be voting on this one. There was an error in the public notice, and so it is automatically deferred until October 13th to allow that notice to be correctly reissued. However, we are receiving public comment and have received a number of comments on the application. There are no comments in support. There are a few in opposition. The first is Troy Henry representing Eastover Property Owners Association at 281 Oakmont Drive. Zoning docket 6920, I represent the adjacent property owners known as the Eastover Property Owners Association, over 300 properties. EPOA commends Mr. Duhan's commitment to the senior citizen and hungry communities. We are in support of a senior community center as a complement to his current Toyota business location. However, EPOA is not in support of the residential component to this project. We believe it is counter to the master plan for this area. We believe the Eastover corridor, I-510 to Reed Dwyer to I-10, should be limited to commercial and single-family residential properties only. There are many properties in NO East that would provide suitable space for the residential components of this project. While we wish Mr. Duhan the very best with his charitable efforts, EPOA cannot support the current proposal. The next comment is from Rose Richardson, 11404 North St. Andrews Circle. Her comment reads, I am in opposition to zoning docket 6920 for the following reasons. 1, Giving Hope's sole reason for wanting this proposal as presented to the public was based on the extreme number of meals they have been providing to the public. Since no time frame for this extreme number of meals was provided, I can only conclude that as a result of the pandemic and loss of employment, Giving Hope has been inundated with people in need of sustenance. Their video, as I recall, did not even feature senior citizens. There was even a person who stated she wasn't there for herself, but in case there are some seniors who may be in need. Everyone knows if something is free, people will stand in line to get it, whether they need it or not. Number two, to jump to the conclusion that since there is currently an overwhelming number of persons in need of food equates to an overwhelming need to build 78 affordable senior housing homes is quite a leap. It defies logic and puts no dent in the case as presented by Giving Hope. Number three, if this is truly about the care of seniors, a community center or senior community center, which would have the capacity to provide services to more than 78 seniors, should be the main focus, and for that, they do not need a zoning change. Number four, the increase in jobs touted by the Giving Hope panel will be temporary at best, as it was stated that the jobs were connected to construction. I work with construction, and when you work on a construction site, everyone knows if you do it efficiently and successfully, you actually work yourself out of the job. Once the project is complete, your job is over. Additionally, there is no guarantee that residents of New Orleans will get the construction jobs created. At the end of the day, the only permanent jobs created will be a handful of administrative staffing positions at the community center to assist seniors. I do not see that as being a big economic boost. Number five, the Buxton Analytics tool for commerce has shown that New Orleans East's issue is not a matter of people, meaning density, income, or the shopping capacity of New Orleans East residents. There are other issues at hand as to why New Orleans East is lacking commerce, but it is not density. The
Okay,
city of Kent.
Steven, that's time. That's the 2 minutes for public comment on that.
Okay, so I'll move to the next comment, which is from Cynthia Green at 260 Oakmont Drive. I oppose affordable housing, senior citizen housing at this location. There isn't enough commerce and emergency services such as police as well as fire department to accommodate additional citizens who need physical and monetary support to live comfortably. There's too much blight, crime to safely live in New Orleans East. Senior citizens are vulnerable because of their age as well as their vulnerability who needed additional aid such as mass transportation to live safely. The next comment is from Clarence Richardson II at 11404 North St. Andrews Circle. I am in opposition of zoning docket 6920. The next comment is from Daisha Greeley, 6301 Eastover Drive, against zoning docket 6920 changes for multi-use due to the impacts it will have on my property in Eastover. Also remains as an economic development property. The next comment is from Tangi Wall at 111 Eastover Drive. I am in opposition to this proposed zoning change and proposed project. Proposed zoning change is non-conforming to the city's master plan, and the proposed project is not congruent to the nearby homeowner subdivisions. This proposed zoning change would have an adverse impact on the neighboring home values and quality of life within this East New Orleans corridor, which should be retained as a commercial zone, appropriate and ready for future commercial business. The next comment is from Tony Lee at 6290 Eastover Drive, opposed to zoning change. The next comment is from Chui Dang at 6290 Eastover Drive. I am in opposition to this zoning request change and is in absolute agreement with CPC staff and denial recommendation. The intended and designed usage of said land for commercial, thus providing maintenance and enhancement to the district area. Additionally, it provides adequate buffering between the Eastover residential and commercial properties along the E-North. The current designation of commercial land is to increase the availability of retail services and amenities. The rezoning purpose of this request is to circumvent multiple dwelling types and allowing more residential uses as opposed to its intended commercial uses. The effect would not change zoning of multiple contiguous properties, creating a new mixed-use zoning segment, the effect would change zoning of multiple contiguous properties, creating a new mixed-use zoning segment, which is not compatible with the master plan and future land use map. Since the goal of the current general commercial designation is to increase the availability of sustainable retail services and amenities, thus creating the retail tax base for the city, especially in this area that is currently underserved by medium and large scale retails. The sole intent of the district area is commercial without residential components. That purpose would be undermined if it's changed to mixed use district. The change in zoning would definitely not ensure consistency with the master plan, creating nonconformities. Therefore, I urge and plead for a swift denial by the CPC commissioners. And that concludes all public, that concludes all public comment for this item.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. And for the record, those public comments were actually read into the record. However, due to notice deficiencies, as stated before by staff, zoning docket 6920, we will not be taking any action on that zoning docket matter. Zoning docket 7020.
And Sabina's gonna start reading the comments from this point forward, so she may need a moment to connect.
I'm here.
Mr.
You all hear me?
While that changeover is happening, I just wanted to point out that there was also zoning docket 6420, the text amendment for the campsites. There were no public comments on it, but you may wish to vote on that at this time.
I'm sorry. You're right, Paul. So we started with 6820. No,
I thought we voted on that.
we took 6420.
6420 is your old business from 2 meetings ago.
Paul, I read the comments in. Did we not take the vote following the comment? Is that what you're saying, Paul?
But there were no comments for the 6420, the text amendment. Oh, I'm sorry. There were comments. Did they take a vote?
Yes, I think.
I thought I made the motion on that. I think I did.
Yeah, I believe we did take a vote on that.
Yeah.
My apologies. I was getting other things settled here. I'm sorry I missed that.
Okay, that's fine. So now we'll hear, are we ready to go for zoning docket 7020?
We are.
Okay.
We have one comment in support of the application from Gail Benson at 3727 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. The comment reads, "Dear Commissioners, the City Planning Commission staff's conditional use recommendation for the above reference case contained 18 provisos. In order for the Mercedes-Benz sales and service facility to function as needed, we are requesting removal of the 5 provisos as noted in our presentation. These 5 provisos relate to the multimodal pedestrian overlay requirements. The characteristics of the multimodal pedestrian overlay are streetcar lines, bike routes, linked to transportation centers, and a concentrated pattern of retail establishments. Our site does not have these characteristics. This portion of Poydras Street is not consistent with other multimodal pedestrian overlay areas such as Canal Street, Magazine Street, Julia Street, or St. Charles Avenue. The corner of Poydras Street and Claiborne Avenue is on the edge of the CBD, adjacent to an Entergy facility and across the street from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It is bounded by heavy industrial uses across the Claiborne Avenue Expressway. The site is at a junction of traffic, noise, and automotive activity. No retail destinations exist past this site on Poydras Street. It is not conducive to pedestrian activity with which the overlay encourages. This project will integrate and complement its surroundings and is appropriate to the context. This development will remove a surface parking lot from commerce, create jobs, and provide economic development for the city of New Orleans. We look forward to bringing the Benson Automotive team to Orleans Parish and appreciate your consideration of our request." And we do not have any comment in opposition to this application.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any comments or questions for staff from any commissioners? I just have one question. Staff may be able to answer this. So out of those 5 provisos that we heard, number 7 relates to wheelchair accessibility. Is that more of a city type of ordinance, ADA compliant, or can staff speak to a little bit more on the rationale for proviso number 7.
Travis, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm pulling up the proviso. I think the purpose in general for that that proviso is consistent with the design standards for the entire multimodal corridor, where the design needs to take into consideration all users, whether transit users, pedestrians, and considerations for people with mobility issues. I'm sure the project will need to be compliant with ADA standards, but this more refers to access from the sidewalk, connecting and then getting users into the building from the sidewalk. So this would include design changes such as bringing the building closer to the street and providing clear pedestrian paths from the sidewalk into the structure. Correct, Stephen?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
I have a question. Well, does that conclude your question, Jonathan?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So if we were to, I mean, I'm prepared to make a motion, but before I do that, I would like to ask this question. If we approve this or if I move to approve this, will there need to be any waivers associated with this if those provisos number 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8 are eliminated?
Yes, so each of those provisos references a section number that's in bold.
Mhm.
And so what they're doing is restating the regulation in a way. So if you were to waive those, excuse me, if you were to delete the provisos, there would have to be a corresponding waiver of each of
Okay.
reference there.
So with that, we wouldn't have to enumerate the particular waivers. Those go along with the provisos. Cite those in the script here.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you would have to do is say that you're deleting the provisos listed in proviso or the sections listed in provisos 2, 3, and so on, and then provide a statement as to how those sections individually or collectively, the waiver is justified under the 9 criteria for variance. So I don't think you have to outline each chapter and verse for each of them, but do need to make a statement.
Okay. Well, I'm prepared to do that. If there aren't any other comments, I'll make that motion.
I second it.
Yeah, I'll just clarify. I move approval for this zoning docket. What is it? I've lost count here.
70-20.
70, yeah, okay. 70-20. Eliminating provisos number 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and any waivers relevant thereto.
And Commissioner Stieg seconds that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Brown to accept the application for this zoning docket as is, and seconded by Commissioner Stieg. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment in support of the motion that this seems to be would seem to me to be a great addition to downtown, and I think the comments about it not being a pedestrian multimodal area are extremely well taken, except on the Saints game days. There's very little traffic, foot traffic, and I think having heard the comments from the architect, that the way they have it planned seems to be in keeping with the neighborhood, and not as if it's Magazine Street or St. Charles Avenue or even Canal Street. So it seems very appropriate to me to make these waivers.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that as well. And not only, we've talked a lot about the multimodal elements to this, but also I think that the requirement, I'm comfortable with the elimination of the 25% requirement, given what's going on around that area. And in general, this is such an improvement and will bring some substantial large dollar retail to Orleans Parish, which I think is much needed. So I commend this development. And
I think that, go ahead.
Commissioner Weber.
Yeah, I was just going to underscore what the two commissioners who made the motion said. You know, this is consistent with the conversion of a lot of the surface level lots around the Superdome, moving them from part-time commerce to full-time commerce. And I think especially at this intersection, this is a traffic heavy intersection. So I'm in complete agreement, and I appreciate bringing a surface level parking lot into large scale commerce. This is exactly what we've been trying to do around the dome. So I'm in full support.
Are there any other questions or concerns in relation to the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown.
yes.
Commissioner Flick.
Yes.
Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley.
No.
Commissioner Steed.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart, yes. Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
The motion passes. Our next zoning docket matter is zoning docket 7120.
Comments in support of this application. First, Carly Wilson, paid representative of Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center at 1340 Poydras Street. The Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center strongly supports this development moving forward to create much needed affordable housing for seniors in this rapidly gentrifying neighborhood. The census tract where this development is planned has seen dramatic Black displacement in the last 10 years. In 2010, it was 73% Black, but by 2018, it was only 37% Black. New white residents have incomes more than 3 times that of their Black neighbors, with median incomes of $70,000 a year, compared to $21,500 for Black residents. Notably, seniors currently living in the census tract have typical incomes of only $25,000 a year, suggesting that they are likely to be priced out by new white residents. Unfortunately, like similar proposal in other gentrifying neighborhoods, we have seen typical NIMBY, not in my backyard, opposition to this development. Last year, staff from our office attended the NPP meeting and witnessed residents making discriminatory statements that could violate the Fair Housing Act. In particular, attendees who were critical of the development made remarks complaining about the possibility of seniors living with their grandchildren in the units. Family status, or the presence of children, is a protected class under the Fair Housing Act. Denying this development would also likely have a disparate impact on people with disabilities, another protected class, given that it is designed to house low-income seniors. Time and again, we have watched opponents of affordable housing use concerns about historic designations, parking, density, stormwater, or a host of other issues as proxies for discriminatory objections in NPP and CPC meetings. The CPC staff has expertly addressed reasonable concerns about parking and other issues in their report. Therefore, we hope that the Commission is able to see through these coded objections and will not let them delay the construction of these much needed affordable units. Our elders need safe and affordable housing options in their neighborhoods, close to amenities and transportation. They also deserve the choice to house their grandchildren if they are raising them. We ask that you please ensure this development process is not impaired by any NIMBY attitudes and strategies. Next comment, Andrea Nicia Morris, representing Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance, 4640 South Carrollton Avenue. In the time of COVID and massive housing insecurity in New Orleans and the United States, this development is building affordable housing that is desperately needed. We support the staff recommendation to approve and move forward with this project as it is consistent with the master plan and CZO and will bring much needed senior housing. We understand the community's concern about parking. Unfortunately, parking is not a right and should not come before the pressing need of housing elderly New Orleanians in neighborhoods that are well connected to public transportation, food, healthcare, and more. We ask that the commission please support this project. Next comment, Emmanuel Gillen, 4218 South Carrollton Avenue. I am a developer of affordable housing in New Orleans, and while I have a business relationship with Hano as such, it is entirely unrelated to this project. This proposal will advance goals to build more affordable housing on valuable publicly owned land in the city of New Orleans, and will crucially provide opportunities for seniors to age in place. Furthermore, the design is attractive, contextually appropriate, and provides a high quality of life for its future residents. I am very happy to see a staff recommendation to approve this project and would urge the CPC to do so. Thank you for your consideration. Now we'll move to the comments in opposition of this application. Howard Conyers, 2221 Brainard Street. Ordering and completion of HUD Section 106 review is required to be done. No community input has been taken into development of this 4-story oversized building that is taller than every neighboring housing in area that require 3 variances in a federal historic neighborhood. The lack of parking did the City of New Orleans do a traffic engineering assessment into clearances and being able to see? The online platform to watch the meeting tunes in and out, so I am unsure if the emails I submitted earlier are being considered by the commissioners. Next comment, Brian Klaslow, 2245 Brainard Street. The proposed parking plan for the project at 2256 Barron Street for only 11 parking spots for a 22-unit building completely ignores the limited on-street parking that currently exists in the area. The project will be at the corner of Barron and Phillip Street. Phillip is a narrow road that only allows parking on one side of the street. One of the corners at this intersection has a 14-unit apartment building with no off-street parking, and another corner has a small business with no off-street parking. Oretha Castle Haley is 1 block north of Barron, and on-street parking isn't allowed due to loading areas for the YMCA. Brainard Street is 1 block south of Barron and has very limited street parking due to numerous multiple unit buildings with no off-street parking. Approving 11 parking spots for a 22-unit building will put a significant strain on the already limited on-street parking in the area. Ignoring this fact will burden the individuals and families in the surrounding areas that use on-street parking, as well as individuals who move into the new building. These 11 spots also need to service the family members, nurses, and other people who visit the new building each day. Just because the new project is located within 600 feet of a bus stop and can have a 50% reduction in parking spots doesn't mean it should. The recent report on parking congestion in Uptown should be considered when evaluating the parking in this area, which is popular with students, short-term vacation rentals, and families alike. The reduction for parking will only benefit the people who are part of the LLC developing the property. Less parking spaces means more units, which means more profit for the LLC participants. This is also why they are seeking waivers for lot area and height. More people and more units means more profits. Individual profits should never come before community. I implore the Commission to reject the proposed parking plan and ask the developers to include more spots to ease parking burdens for the residents and surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you for your consideration. Please note the audio and video of this meeting have broken up multiple times. It is almost impossible to follow what is being discussed or covered. And that concludes the comments for this item.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments questions for staff or a motion for the zoning docket 7120?
This is Commissioner Marshall. Motion to accept the staff recommendation for approval.
This is Commissioner Mobley. I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Marshall, second by Commissioner Mobley for accepting staff report for zoning docket 7120. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Before we vote, I would like just to recognize that we are trying to work on all of the audio, and that when we notice that we can't hear either a staff or a commissioner, that we are trying to troubleshoot and make sure that everybody is audio is being able to be heard. So I just wanted that to be read into the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Wittry. I was hoping we could address that as well, and also to note that the concern in one of those comments was that they couldn't tell, and just to what was being discussed, and just to reassure that nothing was being discussed unless everybody who was online previously was again online and invited to be there. So.
Any more comments or concerns regarding the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Steed,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart votes yes in support. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Wittry.
Yes.
Unanimous support for zoning docket 7120. Next zoning docket 7220.
Comments in support of the application. Walter Baudier, representing Plethos Development, 6559 Louis XIV Street. Hello, and thank you to the CPC for taking the time to consider our matter today. My name is Beau Baudier, and I am a co-developer of the site. First,
Sabine, can I ask you to stop for a second? So I need to recuse myself on this matter, even on the reading of the public comments, and of course on any motion or vote. So this is Commissioner Steig, so I'm going to recuse and come back on the next item.
First, I want to thank the city planning staff for their support. With regard to Proviso 12 requiring a re-subdivision, we believe this proviso may be problematic from a development and financing perspective. We also believe it is unnecessary. The site consists of 2 lots of record on opposite sides of a former street. Once the non-historic additions that currently connect the 2 buildings are removed, the developer should have the option of whether or not to re-subdivide. If a re-subdivision is required by the subdivision regulations, we will be required to do one under existing law, rendering the proviso unnecessary. Timothy Baudier, 80,061 Rollo Road. My name is Tim Baudier. I am the lead developer of this project. I am grateful to Kelly Butler and the city planning staff for a thorough report and also for a recommendation of support. I am asking the City Planning Commission to delete portions of Proviso 13 related to design. In short, the Design Advisory Committee did not have the benefit of renderings and a light study. We do not believe there is a need to redesign the light wells based upon the light studies. We respectfully request Proviso 13AI be deleted. We also object to 13AIII as this proviso is contrary to the city's stated housing goals. We are proud that many of our units will naturally be accessible as workforce housing. This is not a project subsidized by housing tax credits. We believe it is inappropriate to be forced to have larger, more expensive units. While we do not believe that was the intent of the proviso, it is the practical result. Further, the units are already among the largest in the city compared to other new multifamily buildings. Mike Sherman, paid representative of the developer, 800 Baron Street. My name is Mike Sherman. I am a land use counsel to the project. My address is 800 Baron Street. I want to thank CPC staff for its favorable recommendation. I would ask for deletion of Proviso 2I3 and 17 relative to the breezeway. Right now, this space is occupied by non-historic additions that sit atop a former public street that is now privately owned. Our goal is to return vehicular access with parking while also creating a prominent pedestrian space. The space is large enough to accommodate both uses. If this mixed-use building is to be successful, the vehicular access with parking is necessary to support the ground floor non-residential uses in Building A. We request this proviso be deleted or replaced with language that states a prominent pedestrian space be included as a part of a breezeway. And there is no opposition to this application.
All right, thank you. Just a reminder, we heard from the applicant for zoning docket, for this zoning docket, that they requested a deferral to October 13th, 2020. Additionally, all the public comments have been read into the record. Are there any questions by any commissioners or a motion?
We were requesting a 30-day referral, is that correct?
Yes, for the first meeting in October 13th.
I can make a motion to defer zoning docket 7220 to the October 13th meeting.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Flick for deferral to the October 13th meeting. Is there a second to that motion?
Witry seconds.
Commissioner Witry seconds that motion of Commissioner Flick. Is there any discussion on the motion? Then I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Steig. Commissioner Steig has recused himself. Commissioner Stewart votes yes in support. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
All right, unanimous support for deferral to the October 13th meeting. Our next zoning docket, well, our next document is a subdivision docket, a subdivision 6920.
There's no written comments in support or opposition.
All right. There were no received comments for subdivision docket 6920. Are there any questions from any commissioners or a motion?
Just as a reminder, the staff recommendation is tentative approval with final approval subject to 4 provisos.
This is Commissioner Steig. I move for approval in accordance with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Long, I second it.
Commissioner Steig's move for approval of staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Lund.
Yes. Yes.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Steig,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart votes yes in support. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Unanimous support and approval of the docket matter, subdivision docket. Next zoning docket 7320.
No written comments.
We didn't receive any public comments for zoning docket 7320. Is there a question for staff or a motion from a commissioner?
What was staff's recommendation?
Modified approval.
I'll go ahead and approve modified, go ahead and make a motion to approve for modified approval for zoning docket 073-20.
Commissioner Flick seconds.
Commissioner Witry moves for modified approval of zoning docket 7320, seconded by Commissioner Flick. Is there any discussion on the motion? There's no discussion on the motion. I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Steig,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart, yes. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Unanimous support for zoning docket 7320. Next zoning docket 7420.
No written comments either.
Okay. No public comment. no comments for zoning docket 7420. However, we did hear from the applicant that on one of the provisos, they did incorporate tying public property with private property. Is there any discussion or comments for staff or a motion by a commissioner?
I'll make an motion to approve zoning docket 7420, subject to 8 provisos, excluding proviso 5. Is that correct, Stephen?
Stephen, was it 5?
Yeah, that. So the recommendation was 9 provisos, so deleting that 1 proviso would bring it down to 8 as stated.
Okay. Is there a second to Commissioner Flick's motion?
I'll second. Witry
sorry.
seconds.
All right. Commissioner Flick's moves for approval of zoning docket 7420 with the deletion of 1 provisos, bringing the total to 8, and Commissioner Witry seconds. Is there any discussion on that motion? Any further discussion on that motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Steed?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart votes yes. Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Unanimous support for zoning docket 7420. Next zoning docket 7520.
No written comments.
There was no written public comments received for zoning docket 7520. Are there any questions for staff or a motion for zoning docket 7520?
And the staff recommendation is approval for this one.
Brown moves approval.
Mobley seconds.
Commissioner Brown moves for approval of zoning docket 7520, seconded by Commissioner Mobley. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Steed?
Yes. Yes.
Stewart votes yes. Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
All right, unanimous support for zoning docket 7520 for approval. Next zoning docket 7620.
No written comments.
There was no public comments received for zoning docket 7620.
And I'll just make the note that there was a request for deferral to October 13th from the applicant on this one.
So there was a request for deferral to October 13th. For this, is there any questions or a motion?
Commissioner Flick will make a motion to defer zoning docket 7620 to the October 13th meeting.
With 3 seconds.
It's been moved by Commissioner Flick for deferral to October 13th, 2020, seconded by Commissioner Witry. Is there any further discussion on that motion or a comment on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley?
Yes.
Commissioner Steed?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart votes yes. Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes, I had one question. Commissioner Mobley, did you want to add a recommendation with this? I believe this is where there was a death in the family, and that was part of the reason why the zoning had lapsed. Or was that already read in the previous comments?
I think that was read in the previous comments and can be addressed that way. And thank you very much for making sure.
Should the merits, though, be deferred till we consider the actual item? I think we're discussing just the deferral, or is that related to the deferral? Just for the record.
I think that it was asking the staff to look at something, and that's kind of the purpose. Although the applicant asked for deferral, that's also a purpose for the deferral.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
All right. Unanimous support for a deferral to the October 13th, 2020 meeting for that zoning docket matter. Before we go to our next subdivision docket, Commissioner Stieg will recuse himself from subdivision docket 9120.
Yep,
Therefore, he won't be voting on this docket matter. All right, we can go to the public comments for subdivision dockets 9120.
All right, in support of the application, Maxwell Chardulo, paid representative of Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center, 1340 Poydras Street. The Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center strongly supports this development moving forward. Now more than ever, we need affordable housing in gentrifying high-ground neighborhoods like Leonidas. Unfortunately, New Orleans has a long history of capitulating to neighborhood opposition in downsizing, delaying, or killing altogether mixed income or affordable developments in or adjacent to white neighborhoods. The most recent example was the Maison Royale development in the Bywater that faced coded racist opposition and far more review than most market rate developments. It still hasn't received final approval because it was thrust into a FEMA Section 106 review where opponents consistently delayed the process. What's before you is a very simple decision about the subdivision of property, and the CPC staff are crystal clear in their report that this development is consistent with the CZO, the master plan, and the general pattern of lots in the neighborhood. In fact, the subdivision will be less dense than what was previously on these lots. We are disappointed that opponents continue to use every formal step in the land use process to derail this desperately needed affordable units, and we hope that you will choose to stand up for working people and the regulations enshrined in our CZO and master plan. Thank you. Next comment, Bill Ives, 8601 Zimple Street. I strongly support bringing more affordable housing into our Carrollton neighborhood. It is much needed. However, I want the project to be right for the tenants and the neighbors. I request that the CPC table the request until the 106 review is completed. Next comment, Emmanuel Gillen, paid representative of Iris Development, 4218 South Carrollton Avenue. I am Emmanuel Gillen, a managing partner of Iris Development, contracted with Hanner to develop this property in the Riverbend neighborhood of New Orleans. Given the acute housing crisis New Orleans is experiencing and the public and fiscal health crisis that 2020 has brought disproportionately on lower income people across the country, we've been proud to work on a project that could deliver 70% of its units to low-income people without reliance on low-income housing tax credits. The task before us as affordable housing developers in Hanno with its mission toward the public is clear. Produce high-quality affordable housing as expeditiously as possible. We have tried in good faith to engage with neighbors while we try to accomplish this. We will not always get every step along the way right, but we have met over 10 times with neighbors and the neighborhood association. We have made multiple design changes and continue to evaluate whether more are possible within the strict budgetary guidelines in which we are operating. So long as there are concerns around design that we think we might be able to resolve in part, we have not been moving forward. We have committed this to the neighborhood as well. We have been crystal clear that any plan that would further reduce density below the 20 units, which is already 20% fewer than the pre-Katrina housing Hanno operated on site, simply doesn't work, and frankly would be unconscionable given the lack of affordable housing options in New Orleans today, and the length of the public housing list that Hanno is aiming to shorten here. Today's application, to be clear, covers the site plan and site planning of our endeavor as we continue to work through the pre-development process. While I do not want to dwell too much on matters of record that are refutable, I do want to point out some outright falsehoods. It is alleged we never met with neighbors before presenting first design, untrue, It is alleged we are proceeding with our subdivision application in violation of environmental review requirements. Untrue. It is alleged this project would be denser than any other in the neighborhood.
That concludes the time allowed for public
Okay, I will
comment.
move to the next comment. Dylan Tet, 1228 General Ogden Street. I am a homeowner and live 2 blocks from the site. I support the development of affordable housing in my neighborhood. We need more affordable housing in New Orleans, and this plan is low density and consistent with the surrounding area. I like the design. Next comment, Casey Martin, 1223 Monroe Court. I am writing to support the subdivision as proposed. I have rented in this neighborhood for nearly a year. Prior to finding my apartment, I had a struggle finding decent housing in an attractive neighborhood that I can afford on my salary as a preschool teacher at Newman. I feel fortunate to live in a neighborhood that is close to my job and close to the river and levee, which I found great for exercising and walking my dog. I understand the struggle of finding quality, affordable housing in this city, and I support this development plan because it will help to solve the problem. As I understand it, the subdivision allows the opportunity to provide more housing while remaining respectful to the scale of the neighborhood. Next comment, Amanda Brown Fabin, 8610 Willow Street. My name is Amanda Brown Fabin, and I've been working and living in New Orleans for over 20 years, having decided to make New Orleans my home after graduating from Xavier. After much planning and praying over several years, I was finally able to purchase a home about 3 blocks from this proposed development. I love my home, and I was beyond excited to move my family to this neighborhood as it is close to my son's school, grocery stores, and other commercial businesses, the levee, and public transportation. I support this project because it provides the same benefits to prospective residents in this area. We cannot ignore the reality that our culture here in New Orleans is threatened because many who support the culture can no longer afford to live here, and affordable housing options are desperately needed. To be able to afford living in a welcoming neighborhood such as this one should not be a luxury, nor should being able to move back to an area where you grew up in are not unable to afford. I see this as an opportunity to allow them to make a home and memories here, just as I'm doing. Next comment, Andrenesia Morris, representing Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance, 4640 South Carrollton Avenue. As you all know, inequality in New Orleans and the rest of Louisiana and the United States have been exacerbated by COVID-19. This development will bring 24 affordable units online. That is 24 families who will not be in danger of homelessness. We ask that you please support this project and put housing first. COVID-19 has proven that housing is healthcare, and right now we do not have enough. I'll move to the comments in opposition of this application. Juliana Padgett, representing Leonidas Residents for Affordable Housing, Carrollton United, and Carrollton Riverbend Neighborhood Association, 935 Dante Street. We are residents of the Leonidas neighborhood who welcome the reestablishment of affordable housing in our historic neighborhood. We request a rejection of Hano's subdivision request for 3 reasons. 1, according to subdivision regulation 3.1.3, proper notification of the impending hearing is required. Proper and timely notification was not made to all neighbors and neighborhood organizations. 2, the preliminary staff report recommends a waiver to New Orleans subdivision regulation 553, corner lots. However, 2 CZO regulations do not support this waiver and indicate that the more restrictive requirement of the subdivision regulations must be upheld. See section 1.4.d, subdivisions required to conform with ordinance. All subdivisions shall comply with the City of New Orleans subdivision regulations. Where conflicts occur with this ordinance, as determined by the Executive Director of the City Planning Commission, the most restrictive regulations shall prevail. Section 1.4.g, conflict with other laws and regulations, states whenever these regulations contain an actual, implied, or apparent conflict with other laws and regulation, including an internal conflict with this ordinance, the more restrictive regulation applies, and face is added unless otherwise specified. And number 3, CPC should table this request until the completion of the Section 106 review. As part of the same comment, in support of affordable housing, we are residents of the Leonidas Pension Town neighborhood who, along with our neighborhood associations, welcome the reestablishment of affordable housing in our historic neighborhood. We know our neighborhood has traditionally been affordable, but is no longer. Many of us bought homes several years ago, and we have watched home prices rise greatly in the last 10 years and want to ensure that everyone can live in this area. Affordable housing. Okay.
Time.
We'll move to the next. Betty DeMarco, 8221 Birch Street. Subdivision docket 9120 for 1400 General Ogden should be continued to another date until neighbors in surrounding blocks are properly notified, as stated in subdivision regulations 3.1.3. Call for neighbors in surrounding blocks have reported to me that no notice was received about the CPC public hearing. The subdivision request by Hano should be tabled until the Section 106 review, agreed to by the city and Hano, is completed. New affordable housing should fit into our historic neighborhood in terms of density and design and work well for individuals and families who will live in them and be our neighbors. John Trombley, 8915 Jeannette Street. I am a direct neighbor to the General Ogden site. I would like the CPC to hold any developer accountable to the current subdivision regulation ordinances should lots be subdivided, as pertains to corner lot sizes and setbacks. The addition of a parking lot greatly reduces the quality of life at our home at 8915 Jeannette Street. As the current lot plan stands, the exit is directly in front of our home. Light trespass from automobile headlights will directly enter our bedroom windows. This is not appropriate for the neighborhood, and we believe it does not follow the CZO guidelines associated with parking lots greater than 10 spots in residential neighborhood. Next comment, Michelle Harmon, 1510 General Ogden. While I am in full support of bringing affordable housing into our community, I would expect that the city allows a development that is thoughtful towards the existing neighborhood and potential new residents. The proposed plan for these properties goes against any precedent for architecture and zoning in the area. Just because the city is in need of affordable housing does not mean that the density of human bodies need to be packed to the brim like project buildings of the past. New developments should not only take the aesthetic and density of the neighborhood into account, but also have the well-being and safety of its residents in mind. Create buildings that give residents a sense of pride, with back doors for safety, direct access to parking, and green spaces for mental and emotional health. Also, the proposed parking lot does not work well with the layout of the buildings. Why should two-story buildings with 4 units each share a parking lot? Any other development like this in our city would allow for driveways near the resident's front door. Also, the parking lot exit has cars targeted directly into an existing neighbor's bedroom window, which is a major nuisance. The developers need to revisit the city ordinances for zoning, which means less buildings to include proper setbacks, and rethink the parking so residents have more direct and safer access to their homes. Next comment, John Shakai, 7830 Jeannette Place. Ladies and gentlemen, the application should be tabled or denied for the following reasons. 1, no public agency should be allowed to build over 100 houses in any neighborhood without neighborhood involvement. Hano schemes will create an immeasurable impact upon stable neighborhoods. Hano has failed by allowing its chosen developers to avoid neighborhood participation. 2, thankfully, because Carrollton is in a federal and local historic district, and because federal funds are involved in the development, Hano, by federal law, must be a participant in a 106 review. The result of the review that could include the reduction of sizes and number of lots. The subdivision, number 3, the subdivision as proposed violates the New Orleans subdivision regulations that require corner lots to be 15% greater than interior lots. And the staff report recommending the applied for lots erred in its recommendation of approval. Number 4, the proposed lot subdivision of 10 lots that conforms to the proposed plans by Iris Development will allow greater density than any other 2-family zone property in Carrollton. Number 5, the proposed construction project violates nearly every principle of the guidelines for new construction by the Secretary of the Department of the Interior and the New Orleans Historic District Commission, which includes scale, massing, seating, architectural elements such as front porches, broad overhang, window sizes, and proportions. Number 6, the planning concepts of the proposed projects are more like cheap suburban multifamily projects with grouped parking, vis-a-vis parking at close proximity to each unit, lack of private green spaces, and other poorly designed elements, such as units that have only one access to the exterior and little connection to the neighborhood. 7, when new lots of record are created, the 3 feet minimum building side yard requirement is not grandfathered. Thus, by the state-mandated International Residential Code, 5 feet is the required distance to a property line, so the proposed building sitting is not allowed. Thank you for your considerations. And that was the last comment.
All right, thank you so much. As commissioners, as you heard from the public comment, a lot of the period of the concerns and those public comments are not regarding to this actual application, but we're looking at this application as essentially the subdivision and not any design features of that. And with that being said, are there any questions or comments for staff in reference to subdivision docket 9120?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Flick. There's a lot of reference in the comments to an adjacent parking lot, but there's none that are provided as part of this application. Is that something that's being considered? It seems like maybe they reviewed, maybe drawings of the actual building. I'm unclear as to what the public saw versus what we see here before.
Yeah, Commissioner Flick, I can speak to that. So what's before you is simply the subdivision of land, not the development itself. It's understanding from conversations I've had that ultimate development will be a series of doubles that have basically the common backyards of those doubles will be used together to create a parking lot that is common to the doubles. And so I believe the comments you're hearing about that are about conceptual designs that have been included in conversations with the public, but they're not, the actual design of the development is not what's before you today. It's really just the subdivision itself.
Okay, and can you talk to the section 106 that's been referred to as well?
So Bob may be able to speak to this better than I can. The section 106 review is a requirement associated with federal funding. It's not part of the city process. It's not part of the subdivision regulations. So our regulations don't speak to that, but it is something that any developer receiving federal funding needs to consider.
Thank you.
It's Commissioner Lunn. Question, Stephen or Bob, about the section 106. Is there any reason why the sequence would be preferable for it to come before us before section 106 review is done?
Bob, I was just going to say that, part of the development process is knowing what you can develop. And so, I think these can happen in either sequence, but from the developer's perspective, it may be advantageous to have the subdivision in place so that they can finalize that as they go through the sort of pre-development process associated with design and what section 106 and other regulatory considerations.
Okay, but it's really there. There's no requirement for it.
That's what I was going to add. There is no requirement in the subdivision regulations that predicates the consideration of a subdivision on the completion of any subdivision or any section 106 review, if it's applicable. The developer is going to have to get both approvals, and we are not authorized to enforce section 106 any more than the federal government is authorized to enforce our subdivision regulations. So the developer is obligated to get whatever approvals are necessary to move this forward.
All right, thank you. And there were several comments about the sizes of the lots, and it appears to me from the parcel map that the 30 by 120 is more consistent with the general neighborhood than the 50 by 120 that they have now.
Yeah, so the lot width requirement is 30 feet and the proposal is to do 30-foot lots. What some of the comments are referencing is that our subdivision regulations have a requirement that corner lots should be 15% wider than interior lots. The reason for that is under our old zoning regulations, which stopped being effective in 2015, corner lots had a deeper side yard requirement, so you needed more lot size on the corners to accommodate those side yard requirements. The new zoning regulations are more responsive to the context or more contextually appropriate, and they require the same corner side yard setbacks as are required for the interior lot. So there's not a functional reason consistent with the purpose of the regulations to have wider corner lots. And for that reason, the staff is recommending the waiver of that corner width requirement to allow all of these lots to be 30-foot lots.
All right, thank you for explaining that.
Are there any other questions for staff?
I guess I just want, I think this is pretty much what Kathleen asked, Commissioner Lund asked about the sequence of the 106 review and the this item. This does not sort of, because these are, it looks to me like well within our subdivision regulations for standard lots, that there is no, the sequencing won't be foregone for any reason when this 106 comes forward through the process itself. And when it does, will the neighbors then have more input? I guess I'm asking this of staff.
So the, I'm not sure I understand the question. Is
Okay,
so we
I
do not.
guess what I'm saying is, okay, there's a number of the letters address the sequencing, which I think we just answered that, which is, you know, but the neighborhood input is that seemed to be of concern as well.
So the input into design, is that the question?
Yes.
So to the extent that any of the, and we can only speak to the processes that we control, which are, you know, our zoning processes. So to the extent that any of the proposals for developing these sites require any additional zoning actions, and I'm not aware that there are any, Stephen may be able to elaborate on that, then the answer would be no, that if there are no public processes required by the law, then there would be no public processes that would enable public input. So if they're, the other way of putting that is if they are allowed and permitted under the zoning regulations to build something by right, then they are allowed to build something by right. As to the 106 process, that is a federal government process. We don't administer it. There are mechanisms for receiving input into those into that review process, but I'm not familiar with the specifics of that. The State Historic Preservation Office or the HDLC would be the local point on the city's role in making comments as far as the 106 process, but we do not administer that.
Thank you.
One more question here, Commissioner Lund. With regard to public notice, there were 2 or 3 statements that basically alleging that there was not sufficient public notice. Do we have documentation that public notice requirements were met?
Yeah, the public notice requirements were met. The reference section of the subdivision regulations requires us to notice neighbors that include the owners of immediately adjacent property, as well as adjacent property that's across the street, across General Ogden, across the side streets, and those were all noticed as required. Additionally, the neighborhood organizations that are on file with the city are required to be noticed and were noticed, and so all required notice was done.
Well, thank you.
And I can add on to that. One of the neighborhood associations reached out to the council member who forwarded it to me about notice, and they had self-reported the wrong address. So we used the address that they had reported to us, and they had changed it, but they did not change it with the city.
Thank you.
In any event, they had notice of this meeting and made public comment.
All right, any more questions for staff?
I make a motion, Commissioner Marshall. I want to go ahead and make a motion for approval, to accept the staff recommendation for approval. I understand all the community concerns, but when it comes to affordable housing, I'd rather err on the side of the city's need to move this along expeditiously to get some affordable housing built. So my motion is to accept the staff recommendation for approval.
It's Commissioner Lunn, I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Marshall to accept staff's recommendation for approval, seconded by Commissioner Lunn. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley.
Yes, and I'm grateful that our retreat's lesson on the racialized history of land use was followed by such a thorough practicum on the ways in which procedural delays and design aesthetics are weaponized to uphold racism and classism in our city.
Commissioner Stig has recused himself. Commissioner Stewart votes yes in support. Commissioner Weber,
Enthusiastic, yes, and support.
Commissioner Witchery.
Yes.
Unanimous unanimous support for the zoning docket matter. At this time now, I don't think we have any minutes or any committee reports. Therefore, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment at 5:44.
So moved by Commissioner Marshall.
So moved by Commissioner Marshall. Is there a second?
Second by Witchery.
Second by Witchery. And we can take a unanimous vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 No opposition. Therefore, we're dismissed. Right before we dismiss, I just want to thank staff for working those technical difficulties out. Staff is always very responsive to the needs of not only the commissioners, but also the public, and making sure that they stay involved and in tune and recording public comments for all docket matters. So thank you, staff, and also thank you to the community who stayed online. All right, at this time, we're now dismissed. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Jonathan. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Stay safe.